The Racing Pod
on Off the Ball
with William Hill. Best odds guaranteed on all Irish and UK racing. 18 plus. See gamblingcare.ie.
Welcome to episode 25 of the Racing Pod on Off the Ball with John Duggan and Johnny Ward. Remember, we're here every week with analysis, interviews, race previews, tips, stories, bit of crack as well. The first half of the pod each week is free to air. The second part exclusively for members. So be sure to sign up by going to offtheball.com/join. For members this week, we're going to preview Sunday's action at Naas, recall famous Epsom derbies and discuss some of the best smaller racecourses to attend in Ireland. So subscribe now for all the juicy content. Johnny, how are we getting on?
Good, JD.
So, you were on tour this week. You were at Aidan OBrien and Paddy Toomey's yards.
Yeah, I was working for Racing TV at Killarney. Interviewed a few interesting characters down there, including the would-be representatives for the Kerry nomination for the Rose of Tralee. That was good crack. But like, if you want to get Killarney, you really want to get more than one meeting. So it was like, you get the train. I got the train at 8:30, so you arrive at say 11:30. You go to the races, and then like it's like Killarney's Killarney, so you want to kind of get the most of it. But I had to go to Aidan OBrien's the next morning, so I stayed in the Horse and Jockey, which is kind of a well-known
Tipperary joint.
Yeah, I suppose, where would you say it's near Cashel? And I stayed in the Cashel Palace, which is kind of has a racing team, but is quite new in some respects, and is Coolmore owned. Effectively, John Magner owns it, and Tom Egan runs the Horse and Jockey, who'd be a racing owner. And it's a brilliant little spot, like really, really good food, and just a real racing feel to it. A lot of old like racing photos, and there was a photo of like the runners and riders to the Grand National a few years ago, and there were like 46 runners, I think, and just loads of memorabilia, a real Tipperary theme, like a lot of kind of Tipperary jockeys on the wall, and very, very nice spot. So, but then got up the next morning at like 5:30, 6 o'clock to go to Ballydoyle. Terrible weather. After probably 2 weeks of near endless sunshine, it was a bad morning. But it was just I don't know. When were you last there?
I was only there once 15 years ago.
Yeah. Got
the royal treatment. A lot of editors at the time just were invited down. I don't know what message they were trying to give, but they were going to give some message, but I can't really remember what the message was. But Aidan OBrien took us in a minivan down in the gallops in line with the horses working. And Joseph was riding at the time. And Yates was a star at the time of the yard. And I just remember the amount of horses must have been like, it could have been, just on my naked eye, could have been 100 horses doing lots in a circle. The music blaring, 7 o'clock in the morning, and you're thinking, this is such a massive operation. So we saw the horses work. Then we saw this kind of the Coolmore element to it. Like my mother's from Limerick, and when I was small, I used to go to Limerick every weekend, and you have Golden Vale milk. And it really is the Golden Vale of Ireland. It really is. You can kind of tell it's quality farmland, it's quality agricultural land. And this is where the stallions had a field to themselves, each one of them, which is mad. They didn't mix, obviously. You had Galileo, you had Sadler's Wells there at the time. I remember getting photo, I think, with Sadler's Wells. And then you have solariums, you've got swimming pools. It is a big business.
Big business, yeah. And there's Coolmore have been in the news a lot of land attempting to buy land in Tipperary, and like some aspects of the PR game that like I'd have reservations about, and you see some of the prices that land is going for. And I haven't been to Coolmore in a long time, and to be honest, like part of me wants a spread of stallions in Ireland, and part of me wants a spread of the studs, and I don't want like utter Coolmore domination, because it's better for sport. And I think Irish people like an underdog. But when you go to Aidan's, and like Aidan's he's probably under a lot of pressure, like when you consider the whole.
Well, it's relentless. It never stops.
It's relentless, like, and
every year it's success required.
One story I remember about Aidan OBrien is I'll have to look up the race, but it was the Irish Guineas, and I think it might have been. I think Power might have won the Guineas that year, around that time anyway, and he won the Guineas, all right, but he also saddled the third. And I said to him, what did you make of your man's run in third? And was he third, was he? So Aidan OBrien just had a third in the Irish Guineas, and he didn't actually know. That's how big the winner was and how big the operation is. And, I did an interview with him for Racing TV, and his defence of City of Troy will be questioned in the sense that what we saw in the naked eye was that this horse did not run any sort of race at Newmarket. And, the excuses that have been offered, you can debate those maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, maybe the horse maybe he has an issue. And I said to Aidan, has he trained on? And he said, what's trained on? He said, if a horse doesn't go from 2 to 3, usually he has a problem. But at the same time, they're not suggesting City of Troy has any problem. Yet he ran 25 pounds below his 2-year-old form, or whatever, 30, 40 pounds below his 2-year-old form in the Guineas. And yet the whole... Like, I read Bruff Scott in the Sunday Times after the Guineas, and like, you'd a very good Godolphin-owned winner. And there was hardly anything about the winner. It was all about City of Troy. And it was the same at Aidan's on...
Yes, let's take a look at some of the snaps you took there. First of all, the horses on the gallop. So we have a lot of horses on the gallop here.
Yeah.
Maybe talk to us about that. How many horses are we talking? Oh, well, I think as well about Aidan, I remember he knew everybody's name. Obviously, he's meant to, but every single... It's sometimes hard to pick horses out, but he knew every single name, every single horse. The attention to detail was really there. Yeah,
I should have taken these photos with a view to this screen rather than Instagram. But there's City of Troy, Dean Gallagher, who said he's there about 15, 16 years. And he...
This is the former jump jockey.
Yeah.
Champion hurdle winner, Horla Loa.
Interesting about that, actually, yeah, because there he is again. And Paddy Toomey uses jump jockeys, and he's a big fan of using jump jockeys as work riders. So they're very strong and they're bigger on the horse. But Dean Gallagher was posing for photos at City of Troy, who's a very cute horse. He's kind of, there he is again. I actually love being around horses. Like, it's something very therapeutic about it.
So, what did you make of City of Troy? Now, you've been...
That's me, and that's actually one look in Paddy Toomey's. And I texted Paddy that night saying 2 docile characters. But that's one look is an absolute dote of a horse. Like, whereas City of Troy, I was over with him, and he's kind of more of a.
Is he small?
Like,
it was relative.
To be honest, like. So Aidan went up to his girth and kind of was like explaining that the horse was actually quite tall, and he was saying, like, you measure from the chin up and that's 15 hands or whatever, and he said he's 16.2 or something like that. I don't think he's that small, but like he's not strikingly big either. Like, and better judges than me would say, maybe he wasn't designed to be a 3-year-old. Like, you get, say, August Rodin last year was like, well, if he doesn't train on as a 3-year-old, he has some sort of issue, because physically, absolutely. City of Troy wasn't that obvious. He's also by Justify, so we don't. He's out of a Galileo mare, but like all Galileo horses pretty much trained on. It's just because they were bred to train on. The Justify Galileo match is so important to Coolmore because they have Justify, and I asked him that. I was like, how important is this horse for the operation? He said, obviously, massively important. But like, if he bombs out in the Guineas or in the Derby, he's kind of done. Like, let's be honest, unless he doesn't stay, which I'm far from certain he'll stay a mile and a half.
Yeah.
But after the Guineas, like, Aidan's excuse, one of his excuses is that the horse went into the stalls. He was only in there a second. His heart rate was like, and you can relate to this. If your heart is pounding, like, it's like having a few drinks and then try to go for a run. Your heart rate basically is just through the roof, and you can't do it. If your heart rate is through the roof, you're not able to run your exercise. But he ran no sort of race for me, so I don't know what to make of him.
Well, if he's a questionable stayer, he'll have to be ridden positively in the Derby. And generally, the best place to be in the Derby is 4th or 5th at Epsom. That you're not too far back, but you're also not too forward. And 16 length defeat to Notable Speech in the Guineas. As I said to you on the show last week, for the 10 Newmarket winners Aidan's had, they didn't have a prep run that season. So maybe they've been campaigned differently. Maybe they've been trained differently. I don't know. Auguste Rodin obviously was trained in a way a little bit differently. But this horse is all to prove. And I know it seems like they're keeping absolute faith. But if you're going to have a bet on City of Troy, you're a brave person.
Yeah, and to be fair, you're on about them keeping faith. Like, Aidan is putting his neck on the line here. Like, he's really 100% backing the horse, in the sense that, like, if they knew there was a major issue, he'd be retired. Like, there's literally no point in him running 50 lengths last in the Derby. Like, nothing. Like, most stallions are failures. If City of Troy had gone to stud after his 2-year-old campaign, he'd be popular, but he'd still struggle to command 6 figures as a stallion, because he's a 2-year-old. You just don't know. You don't know how a son of Justify is going to get on at stud in Ireland. Most stallions are complete and utter failures, because, like, I was even thinking of Rocket Gibraltar, who's most most able son runs in the Lockinge. Like, Rocket Gibraltar, how would you assess him as a stallion? Like, he was such a good racehorse, but he didn't really get any proper good horses, not that many anyway. And he was still a stallion that made money. But most stallions are failures, and it makes no sense for them to run him in the Derby. And they seem to keep faith in him. And the funny thing about the Derbies, JD, all of the form horses are falling by the wayside, because
we had some interesting trials, like the Linkfield trial, the Dante this week. So the Linkfield trial, ambient friendly, was very impressive, but like the Sars Glen Eagles didn't look a stare on breeding, but Freddie Talicki bought Ambient Friendly, and the horse was like made the opposition look ordinary. And then I saw the Dante Economics might not even turn up at the Derby. William Haggis's horse.
This is extraordinary because he was taken out of the Derby having been entered, and he's by Night of Thunder, and like William Haggis, who, and it was pointed out, like he took Baid along. He only made his debut as a 3-year-old. Took him along slowly, but when you win a trial like that, and he got there too soon, his rider said, like when you win a trial like that, I'm really not sure Ireland has a Derby horse. Like I saw
Los Angeles
there. I was over with him at his stable briefly as well, and he's a bit of a character of a horse. I love the way he found for pressure in the last sort of furlong in the Leopardstown trial, but like at the same time they kind of finished in a bit of a heap. And then you've the winner at Chester who beat Agenda, who subsequently, broke down passing the line and passed away. Like he would have been my idea of the Derby winner. And Agenda was a horse that's dear to me because I remember Aidan gave me word for Agenda when he ran at Dundalk. I was in France. I was like, kind of had a couple of glasses of wine. I was like, give us a horse. And Agenda needs to be supplemented. But at the moment, his credentials for the Derby for me are they're nearly as good as most of the Coolmore horse.
Well, Los Angeles out of Camelot, still unbeaten. I was visually impressed with him in the last, say, furlong. I think he picked up well, and he's. I think there's a lot more to come from him.
He's the horse. I think if you were backing a horse for the Derby from Ireland, he's very solid. Like, and he's unbeaten. Camelot hasn't gotten many superstars. Luxembourg would be probably, I suppose, the best of them. But Camelot won the Derby, and he's definitely bred for it. And I'd be massively, as you say, like positive about how he finished the race, which they were all in a scrap for it, and he just pulled away then in the closing stages, and probably is improving. And I think Epsom be no problem to him. But I don't know, like. They're also leaving the problem with backing him is that he's inferior to City of Troy unless they're completely telling you porkies.
They're not telling you porkies.
And they're not.
So obviously City of Troy is still working very well on the gallops. That's what must be happening.
Yeah, like he seemed to, he came out of the race fine, and the map was to go to the Derby from the Guineas. And in fairness, and he said this about the French Guineas horses, who Henry Longfellow and his other horse Diego Velasquez, he said really train them to be like at 100% this early in the season, and that's fine. I thought both of those horses ran interesting enough races actually in the really muddling French Guineas. So it's not that City of Troy was going to the limit to win the Guineas, but he ran no sort of race.
So you were down there. Did any other horses catch your eye or Aidan's voice, as it were? Did he talk about anything else in glowing terms?
What else did he speak about? I asked him about a couple of 2-year-olds actually. He has an Uncle Mo half sister to City of Troy, and he is it a full sister to Henry Longfellow. So they're definitely two to keep an eye on as 2-year-olds. Other than that, it was weird. I'd say we spent 90% of the day talking about City of Troy, who was down the field in the Guineas.
Did you get some breakfast?
We did. We're very looked after. Chris Armstrong, who's part of the operation there, he was kind of coordinating it, and Aidan was very given with his time as well. And for a guy that maybe felt, I don't know if he felt under pressure or didn't feel under pressure when you've hyped up a horse who flops in the Guineas, he didn't come across that way.
He's nothing to prove.
There was actually a photo of him as well. But do you remember his first classic winner?
Was it King of Kings?
Desert King at the Curragh with Christy Roach riding. Like, Aidan looks about 16 in the photo, I'm telling you. And now he's 52 or 3. He looks early 40s. So I think living outdoors with horses is a magnificent way to live. And if you ever see the people leading the horses around, they're in great shape, right. and it's a good life. And you're just there, looking at all these, the 50 horses go around, they come back in, 50 horses go around, extremely expensive horses, and you're like, this is amazing. But at the same time, Ireland is in transition in terms of we've no runners in the Lock-Inch. We really have, we were an irrelevance in the Guineas. We were slightly less of an irrelevance in the... Actually, the one horse he did kind of give, and I'm talking about the Oaks here, Rubies Are Red, who
ran very well there in
Lingfield.
The Lingfield Oaks, nearly got there. You got to me, won the race, but Rubies Are Red was flying at the end.
I like her now. I think that prep and the sense that she's coming along, and her pedigree, her and the Lang are very interested for the Oaks. But in terms of Ireland and our relevance in the mile division. Like, we weren't mapped in the Guineas. Ilang Ilang finished 5th, and obviously Dunica's horse finished 2nd in the Guineas. But like, you look at the Lock-in tomorrow, I feel that's quite unlike the jumps seen. Like, British racing has very much the upper hand at the moment, primarily because they Franklin and Dubawi.
That's okay. And Paddy Toomey, he's an upcoming trainer. Tell us about him.
That was fascinating. Like, I'm not sure I'd ever been to Golden before, which is in the, and like you talk about the Golden Vale, this is in the heart of racing country and agricultural country in Tipperary, and like, it's a lovely quaint village over whatever the river is, really, really nice. And Paddy Toomey's yard is literally like right on the outskirts of the village, and it was like an old house that he bought a few years ago, and it goes back to pre-famine days or during the famine, like 1840 odd, and he's developed the yard a lot with lots of stables there, and he was telling me about, you know, his operation, and that fascinating character. Like, he's extremely successful, could have 3 runners in the Guineas, probably only 2 now in the Irish Fillies Guineas, and he has like Shamey Heffernan's coming in to ride out for him.
Okay.
And there's this strange situation where Paddy's 2 horses in the Guineas, in the Curragh, Billy Lee will have the pick of them, and one of them finished 2nd in the Salsa Bill, and the other filly, the Harry Angel filly, I'm really bad with names, she's unbeaten, and she won the Leopardstown trial where she beat Kitty Rose. But Billy Lee will have a tough enough choice. And Shamey Heffernan probably, I imagine, might end up riding the 2nd string, in which case, can you imagine if Shamey Heffernan won the Guineas on a 2nd string for Paddy Toomey, possibly beating a Ballydoyle horse?
Just to let you know, news-wise this week, that trainer Tony Martin had a 3-month ban for an anti-doping offence. The news came out that this ban has to begin immediately. So his request for a judicial review was unsuccessful. He'll not have a licence to train now until August. The jumps trainer Tony Martin, a horse in his yard called First Man, tested positive for lidocaine, which is a local anaesthetic banned on race days. This was after the horse won a race at Dundalk in January of last year, and the Irish Horse Racing Regulatory Board imposed the suspension on Tony Martin, a 3-month ban for this anti-doping offence. So the Lock-in Stakes you talk about, Johnny, at Newbury on Saturday, 3:35, 1 mile over good ground. Really about 2 horses this race. Big Rock.
Don't think it is, JD.
No, well,
no.
We'll get to it. Big Rock, the highest rated horse in the field, as you said. A son of Rocket Gibraltar and a grandson on the dam side of See the Stars. New trainer as well for this one. And then Spiral, going to be hard to beat if she turns up in the same form, which saw her win Group 1s at Deauville, Newmarket and Santa Anita at the tail end last year. So the market says both 9 to 4 shots, Big Rock and Inspiral. Why do you disagree?
Well, he's given, Big Rock's given a rating of, and he's very consistent, he's given a rating of 127, which is based on his performance when he won the QE2. You might remember Tahira was well fancied in that race, and Nashua and Paddington were in it. Paddington basically didn't run his race that day. He'd kind of gone over the top or whatever. But it was a real front-runner performance on proper soft ground, right? And it's not going to be like that tomorrow. Like, he will be massively taken on, because you have, say, the likes of Audience in the race will probably be basically up there to spoil it for him. Or obviously set it up for Inspiral. So Big Rock will not get an easy lead, and I'd be very surprised if he went off favourite. Sharian, on the other hand, who wasn't really good enough to beat the likes of Paddington last year, he seems to have trained on very well. And for me, I'd be looking at him and Inspiral. Inspiral has a brilliant record fresh. You know, it's funny that they've kept going with her, because she's a 5-year-old now, and like, she must have some value. I can imagine bringing her to, like, I don't know, Dubawi or whatever. Like, she's a Frankel mare who's been exceptional, like probably Frankel's best mare so far, and she's a great record fresh. She has to come off a strong pace, which she 100% will get here, and I'd probably go between her and Shari. And Poker Face isn't without a chance as well, but a little bit disappointing when you think of like Hawkwing, you know, his demolition job in this race, and some of the Irish runners, and Rhododendron run in recent years don't even have a runner in the race. I
think Ryan Moore is the best jockey by a mile. And that's it's nothing to do with the other jockeys. I just think Ryan Moore is the best jockeys we've ever seen.
Are you tipping High Royal at a price?
50 to 1.
Wow.
Well, second in the Guineas last year. Now, the form tailed off completely, but the horse that got cheek pieces tomorrow was third in a Group 3 on reappearance.
After having a wind up.
Yeah, I think at a price, 50 to 1 to reach the frame, with Ryan Moore on board. I just felt that was an interesting one.
Yeah, the makeup of the race for me in terms of betting is Big Rock now. Aurelian Lemaitre will I imagine now he's not going to be like, I have to make the run here by any stretch, and the horse stays well, and he might be able to sit off a nice pace and win, but I feel the ground won't bring out the best in him.
Just before we go to the members section, a couple of jump stories this week as well. Cork Rambler retired, the Grand National winner at Aintree from last year, and then one of your favourites, Harchibald, RIP at 25.
Yeah, like, and I'm not really soppy necessarily about the deaths of horses in their mid-20s. Like, you know, it's like he's had an absolutely manicured life. You know, he did, as racehorses go, Harchibald had it pretty good. Like, I'm sure he was looked after like a star when he retired. Not to mind when he was racing. I loved this horse. It was just he was around at that time when, like, I don't think I've ever gotten as much a kick out of jump racing as I did when it was Brave Inca, Harchibald, Hardy Eustace, and I don't feel I ever look forward to a race as much as the second champion hurdle that Hardy Eustace won. And I was only talking to Conor O'Dwyer about it on our show the other day about how good the ride he gave Hardy both those years. But Harchibald was the most misunderstood horse, and the people who criticise Paul Carberry's ride at Cheltenham, in my view, have literally no chance of making money ever back in horses, because how they thought that was a bad ride. The problem with Harchibald was he was such a good jumper, and like, people don't talk about the beauty of a horse jumping a hurdle, but JD, he was so slick and he was quick, and you get this kind of, if you backed him and he jumped a hurdle and he'd kind of like, he'd just make lengths in the field, you'd be like, Jesus, like, I'm onto a winner here. And he came back, won the, you know, it was a fighting fifth winner, came back, and didn't he win the Christmas hurdle again when he beat Rooster?
Yeah, he's more famous though for the race he lost.
Yeah,
it's a bit like Crisp in the Grand National with Red Rum, in that it was one of the best races I've ever seen. Like Brave Inca won the race the next year. He was third. Hardy Eustace won it 2 years. You had Essex back in front, Accordion Etoile, Rooster Booster, and there's just this brilliant moment with the late Desi Hughes and Noel Meade in the stand at Cheltenham. I think it was at the end of some documentary or something where Noel congratulates Desi, you know, and because obviously Noel's probably a bit of shock as well.
I think Desi actually thought that I think that was a race where Desi thought the horse had been beaten and there was all that madness in the stands. But like, Paul Carby spoke about this in his autobiography as well, and that basically Noel Meade sort of told him to take it up earlier at Punchestown, and Paul said, never tell me how to ride a horse again. But like, he just wasn't that type of horse. Like, he wasn't. He won a race subsequently at Dundalk. I think Declan McDonough rode him, and he found a bit off the bridle over a mile and a half. But in 2 mile races, especially Mudland races, it just didn't suit him. He wasn't able to quicken. He literally could not quicken. And Hardy Eustace just kept going. And he had to find more than Hardy Eustace to the tune of, say, 2-3 necks up the hill in Cheltenham. It was never going to happen off that sort of pace. But that's what made, you know, and I loved Harchibald. I think he was completely misunderstood. And it was the sight of Paul Carberry travelling on him. And I used to get like real, like the hairs in the back of my neck when he won the fight in fifth. It was just, there was something about the horse. I loved him. He's by a long stretch one of my favourite National Hunt horses. And yeah, I have to say I was sad when I heard he passed away, because it's just another of that era gone.
It was the first 4-day festival as well, and the next day, you had Lar Byrne, who was the owner of Hardy, used to celebrate, and the silhouette of me in the Irish Independent behind him in the front page. So there you go.
Well, that photo should be there, not mine of these horses in Ballydoyle, you know.
So make mine a double J. I'm going to go for High Royal, 50-1 each way in the Lock-in Stakes at Newbury for €1 each way, Saturday 3:35. You're going for it in that race or something else?
We'll talk about maybe the Navan races. So I'm going to take you on, just looking at the prices here. I'm going to take you on with Sharian at the prices at around 5-1 each way.
Okay, this is the Racing Pod and Off the Ball. If you're listening to the free version of the podcast, we're leaving you here, but if you're looking for more, including our analysis of Sunday's action at Naas, Navan on Saturday as well, and a discussion of some of the best race courses to visit in Ireland, go to offtheball.com/join to subscribe and get the full podcast every Friday with a lot of our racing tips, insights and stories from the week's action.